So, one, I think it's very clear that the government wants to say that continuity will be established. They're committed to this new structure of a chief of defense staff having different theater commands, so on and so forth. And yet, at the same time, also want to assure the top brass of all three forces that this is a work in progress, that there will be continuity. There will be whoever is the most qualified to take over next will be given that job. Despite the extremely terrible nature of circumstances that have led to the death of General Rawat, his wife, and 11 others. Major General S.V.P. Singh.
Yeah. See, the very creation of the designation of Chief of Defense Staff was with a very major aim of reforms in the armed forces and taking forward the threat perception which has come to exist. And General Rawat filled that post with admirably. He filled it admirably, performed admirably. He had a vision. He was a man of future wars who could see well ahead. And now, the key post that Chief of Defense Staff is, it is with the theaterization in being, in the pipeline, it also carries that he is the commander-in-chief of the theater commanders. So with operational responsibility, and as we see what is existing across our borders, both north and east, it is well that the government does not wait much longer. The vacuum has to be filled, and the redundancy caters for filling the post with equally capable officers or the chiefs who are there today who will be in consideration and do as well. In fact, I would say General Rawat has left a springboard for his successor to take forward what he had done. He had articulated himself in the environment, both within the services and in the strategic circles, with great aplomb, and brought to fore the issues on hand with the armed forces. Well, General Rawat is as Chief of Defense Staff, not only theaterization, you see, his management of reforms to articulate was tremendous. And he had a vision. What I saw of him was that he had the insight of, or he could read the mind of the opposite side. Okay. That is the Chinese and the Pakistanis. And you know, the Galwan issue I want to highlight here, when we went into the east of Kailash ranges, the Chushul Bole, a few days before his statement had come, we will do something very important at the time of our own choosing. And I think that took China back 2 steps. So that was the bold commander, the battle-hardened operational commander that General Bipin Rawat was.
Okay.
And his legacy
I also want
will
to go,
stay.
Yeah, I also want to go across to Wing Commander Abhishek Mathiman. I know it's early days yet. Yes, a court of inquiry has been instituted. They will get to the bottom of what went wrong in today's crash. But let's look at some preliminary facts as we know it. The Mi-17 V5 is supposed to be one of the sturdiest choppers in the business. It's a VVIP chopper. It has flown, among others, the Prime Minister, other ministers, the chiefs. So it is a time-tested chopper. It's a time-tested vehicle, as it were. That's one thing. Second thing, what we've heard from eyewitnesses on the ground, and admittedly they are no experts, but what we've heard from eyewitnesses on the ground is that the chopper hit a tree, so which means it was in downflight for a considerable period of time if it has to hit the top of a tree, then burst into flames and smoke, and then crash down. From this preliminary information, can we gauge as to what could have gone wrong, Wing Commander?
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay. With the inputs available at hand since this afternoon when this tragic, in fact, devastating accident has taken place, putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, what prima facie happens to be a case, although it will be a little premature to be contemplating on about the reasons that could have led to this tragedy, Nevertheless, before the completion of the court of inquiry, we can correlate the various factors keeping in mind what existed at the time the aircraft was in the air. The aircraft had taken off from Air Force Station Sulur for Defence Services Staff College, which is in Wellington. By road, it's a distance about 80 to 100 kilometers. And by a class of aircraft of Mi-17 V5, which he was flying in, flying time of roughly around 20 to 25 minutes. So the time when it has gone out of contact with the ATC, it must have been in the terminal phase of flight. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens is, to a layman, they would find it a little difficult to correlate, but having been an air crew has operated extensively in this area, I can tell you that although the weather at the departure airfield as well as the destination, that was Wellington in this case, could have been reported to be fine, over these hills, over the Nilgiris, at times weather changes rapidly.
Yeah.
It could be a very localized phenomena, but it does change rapidly. It could be a very temporary phenomena, but it could coincide with the exact time of flight that, say, about 5 to 10 minutes of flying time that it was over the hills. Now, add to that any technical snag which crops up simultaneously as the aircraft is trying to maneuver through weather. A helicopter, a rotor wing, that too, compounds the problems for the operating air crew a great deal. So, weather problem coupled with a technical difficulty on board is a recipe for disaster. Not discounting the fact that the crew who are detailed for these kind of VIP flights, especially with the Chief of Defence Staff on board, we have very clear-cut SOPs which we work out and stick to the minutest details before the aircraft gets airborne. The most highly qualified air crew with adequate amount of experience in the area which it is slated to be operating in, as well as the pre-flight checks and a thorough technical evaluation of the aircraft before offering it for the flight is an imperative. There can be no doubt about it. So in the Air Force circles, definitely people are still wondering and trying to make out. Of course, we can rest assured that it might take a little time, but we have one of the best professionals dealing with the investigation which the Court of Inquiry is going to subsequently be conducting.
Okay.
And
I want to go back.
Also be correlating things with the
I want to go back to the generals, and I want to lay out what General Rawat's contributions have been so far, not just in this first of its kind Chief of Defence Staff post that was created, and his vision of creating theatre commands, which will now eventually fructify over the next, let's say, year to 18 months. But more importantly, it also coincided at a time, General K.J. Singh, when we were seeing both borders active. We were seeing the LOC also pretty active, and the LAC, of course, with China over the last year and a half, 2 years or so. At a tricky time such as this, to have helmed the affairs, first as Army Chief and then subsequently as CDS, what do you see has been his contribution to vis-a-vis both of these adversaries that we have?
See, if I was to list his contribution, it's a very difficult and tough task, but I will just highlight the important ones. The first is he clearly spelled out that China is our enemy number one. And under his stewardship, we have rebalanced towards the Chinese theater. As you are aware that one corps has been designated to Northern Command to look at Ladakh area and certain other formations, and Himachal border, which was part of Western Command, has been taken out of Western Command and handed over to Central Command. So these kind of changes of rebalancing and putting the correct priority and reassigning formations has been carried out. He was also, in a way, great proponent of integrated battle groups, which have got piloted, which have gone tested out in a recent exercise like Dakshin Shakti. So it's been validated.